Let's get into it. What a week. On Tuesday, President Biden headed to a campaign stop in Las Vegas where he laid out his economic agenda, including $258 billion in housing investments. Said Biden, wiping flop sweat off his brow, it would have been closer to $300 billion, but that blackjack table was calling my name. I remember when I bought my first home, said Biden. I ran those horses till they nearly keeled over, but I got every one of those stakes in the ground. If anyone tells you the McGraw clan got there first before they mysteriously disappeared, you tell them that's McGraw clan propaganda. That's Biden land. From the turn outside Beckham all the way to the Southern Pass, I'd sooner give it back to the Chickasaw than let those filthy McGraw bastards anywhere near my land. Biden concluded to a stunned silence while holding an ice cream cone. The money Biden announced would go towards mortgage relief credits, down payments to help first-generation homeowners, lower closing costs, and encouraging competition in the housing market. And for those who live on the coast, some of the most delicious avocado toast you'd ever did see. Ooh, a poached egg, a little sea salt. Now that's living. Not living in a house, but living. In some sense of the word. Meanwhile, the Biden administration on Wednesday issued its most significant climate regulation yet, an EPA rule to accelerate our national transition to electric cars. Here's how it works. Going forward, non-electric cars can still have cup holders, but the cup holders will just be a little too small. Just barely. So that at first you're like, huh. This McDonald's cup is unusually big, I guess, but then you realize it's every cup. No cup fits. You have to wedge the cup between your thighs, and it shouldn't be as annoying as it is. It certainly shouldn't be the thing that convinces you to get a whole new zero-emission car, but it is. The cup holders are just a hair too small, and that's how we solve climate change. Nice. By 2032, the rule, which tightens rules on tailpipe pollution over time, would likely mean over half of new cars sold in the U.S. would be electric, and we would avoid pumping 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere over the next 30 years. Unless Taylor Swift announces a new tour. It's like how after 2016, there was a certain amount of time before you could joke about Hillary. We're still, for some reason, in that phase with Taylor Swift. Interesting. President Biden was spotted wearing black Hoka running shoes with his suit. And the aging conservative white male fashion police of the New York Post have informed readers that this is bad and a cause for concern. If we're going to be concerned about this, it should be about President Biden falling into his streetwear era. It's a slippery slope. Before you know it, the commander-in-chief is wearing a Supreme bucket hat and an off-white belt bag to a state dinner. I have to tell you something. I'm glad to see he's in sneakers. Dress shoes are fucking stupid. Every sneaker brand should make the most comfortable walk-on pillows, 2 inches of cushion running sneakers that are meant to be worn with suits. What are we doing here? Oh, we have the shoes that we could wear and walk around in all day without a cramp or twinge of pain that we love to wear. And then we have our business shoes that are just worse, but they convey business. When you go to the airport, they have a sign that tells you not to yell at strangers. We have to ring up our own groceries at the grocery store. There's only one rhino left. It's over. I'm wearing my Brooks Ghost Maxes to weddings and bar mitzvahs. Speaking of Jewish performances of manhood, Florida Democrat Jared Moskowitz this week called House Republicans bluff in their impeachment inquiry into President Biden, daring House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer to call for a vote. Moskowitz said this at Wednesday's impeachment hearing.
Let's just do the impeachment. I mean, why continue to waste millions of dollars of the taxpayers' money if we're going to impeach because you believe you've shown he's committed a high crime and misdemeanor? What are you waiting on?
I like his energy here. Like when you've been texting with someone from an app for a while and they keep saying they want to meet up, but it's been weeks now and you're clearly never going to meet. And finally, you're just like, how about right now? Let's get Hailey Bieber smoothies right now. What's wrong with right now? Meet me in Erewhon in 15 minutes if you're so interested. Right now. Let's go. And then they block you. And you finally know peace. Moskowitz even offered to help get the vote started.
They haven't proven it, right? They haven't proven he committed a high crime and misdemeanor. Otherwise, we would call for impeachment. So look, the chairman knows me well. I mean, I'm just here to help him, right? And so I just think we should do it today. Let's just call for it. I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman. I want to help you out. You can second it, right? Like, make the motion to impeach President Biden. Go ahead. It's your turn. You second it. No, nothing. Okay, we got nothing.
Fantastic. You ever watch someone and you agree with them and everything they're saying, but you also know they got dunked in the toilet in high school? And really, aren't I just talking about myself right now? And isn't that what bothers me? Am I Jared Moskowitz? What could have let me there and what could have let him here? Oh. Fucked me up today. We would be remiss not to mention that Moskowitz, doing heroic work up there, also put on a Putin mask to attend the hearing.
I just came to thank James Comer for taking all of our intelligence and using it in the committee.
Then, to really sell the impression, he poisoned several journalists. As Republicans were on defense over their flagging effort to impeach Joe Biden, Donald Trump made headlines over his embrace of a national abortion ban. In a Tuesday radio interview, he said that he could be on board for a 15-week ban.
We're going to come up with a time, and maybe we can bring the country together on that issue. The number of weeks now, people are agreeing on 15, and I'm thinking in terms of that, and it'll come out to something that's very reasonable. But people are really, even hardliners are agreeing, seems to be 15 weeks, seems to be a number that people are agreeing at.
Oh, yeah, the hardliners love it. Gloria Steinem was shaking hands with Mike Johnson. Merle Hoffman was clinking champagne glasses with Tim Scott. Pretty soon, everybody was making out, and the deal was done. And Trump's charm offensive continued when he sued George Stephanopoulos, also known as George Slopanopoulos, which didn't mean anything, but was good, for defamation over the host's on-air claim that judges and two separate juries have found Trump liable for rape. In fact, Trump was found liable for sexual abuse. Trump wants everyone to be very clear about this. He was found liable for sexual abuse. If you don't want Trump's lawyers to come after you, be sure to spread the word. He is a sexual abuser who was found liable for doing abuse of a sexual nature. Okay. Speaking of consequences, if Trump does not post a nearly $500 million bond on Monday, New York Attorney General Letitia James, the legend who doesn't have a political bone in her body, may begin seizing Trump's assets, including Trump Tower. Trump, it seems, cannot raise that bond, leaving him with dwindling options, which include filing for bankruptcy, finding a wealthy backer, hoping an appeals court reduces the bond, or doing nothing and letting her take the building. In a week, this could be Trump Tower. For those listening, here are some of the new services on offer at Gay Tower. Free abortions, paper straw factory. There's also a sign that says, "Become trans today." The Ibram X. Kendi Center for the Study of Why White People Should Feel Bad All the Time. And a sweet green. I don't like sweet green. Not enough dressing. It's like, we get it, you're healthy. Calm down. You know what I mean? I'm here for a salad, but I know I want to live a long time, but not forever. I'm actually not a comeuppance guy. It's weird. Based on my personality, you'd sort of think I would be. Like, I know I read as a petty bitch. But I truly have never really cared what happens to Trump. I just want Trump to stop happening to us. But I'm a full resistance lib when it comes to taking that building. I don't care about the politics. Just take that fucking building. And honestly, the Type A nerds from coast to coast who've been paying attention nonstop for the better part of a decade, we deserve this. We deserve to see a gold toilet being carried out of that building and turned into a succulent planter at a lesbian-owned coffee shop / pitbull rescue center / dildo repair co-op. Could you imagine it? And it's not just Trump who's on the hook for various crimes. Former Trump aide Peter Navarro this week began serving his 4-month prison sentence for refusing to comply with a congressional subpoena. Navarro has been advised to build up his reputation in prison on day one by singling out the worst person there, walking right up to him and saying, "I'd like to offer you foreign policy advice regarding China." The prison where Navarro will serve his term is next to Miami Zoo. Sam Mangel, the prison consultant Navarro hired to help him prepare, told CNN, "Not only can you hear the lions, you can hear the lions roar every morning." Stop making it sound cool. Trump's impact is also being felt down ballot. Berrnie Moreno, a Trump-backed wealthy former car dealer and certified MAGA freak, won his competitive Republican primary in Ohio's Senate race on Tuesday. In the days leading up to the primary, the AP reported that someone with access to Moreno's email had, in 2008, created a profile on Adult Friend Finder seeking men for one-on-one sex. "Oh, that's where I know him from. I knew he looked familiar," said Lindsey Graham. The photoless user, Nardo1967-2, which happens to be Moreno's birth year and month, wrote, "Hi, looking for young guys to have fun with while traveling." Bernard, or Bernie, or Nardo, if you're a young guy up for some fun, denied that he created the account. Through a lawyer, Moreno claimed it was an ill-conceived prank by a former intern.
What's the joke exactly? Is that the joke? So what's the joke? Then what's the joke?
Moreno's lawyer even provided a statement by the former intern, a man named Dan Ricci, who said, "I am thoroughly embarrassed by an aborted prank I pulled on my friend and former boss, Berrnie Moreno, nearly 2 decades ago." 16 years. Calm down. 2 decades ago. Okay. You feel it's like they're working this a little too hard. Anyway, the prank being that Moreno... That's a premature awooga. The prank being that Moreno was actually more interested in groove stuff. Unbelievable. It's classic intern stuff. You know how people with no job security are always going on to fucking gay sex websites, joke soliciting gay sex on their boss's behalf? That story didn't convince everyone, including one Trump ally who told a reporter, if you believe Bernie Moreno's story, that in 2008, a rogue intern from Ohio University created a gay dating account for Bernie right next to Bernie's parents' house in Florida, I've got some oceanfront property in Ohio to sell you. And we'll buy it, screamed a retired contractor at a Trump rally outside Phoenix as his wife ran to get her checkbook from their Dodge Durango with sheets 7, but has never carried more than 2 of them because their son doesn't visit anymore because his wife has gone crazy with the politics. Just a reminder. Bernie Moreno is a right-wing sleaze. He is for a national abortion ban. He was for a trans healthcare ban that the Republican governor of Ohio vetoed for being too extreme. He has fully embraced Trump. Sherrod Brown is one of the best senators you could ever hope to have. He is the last statewide Democrat serving in Ohio, and he has managed to stay in office without selling out his principles, and we all need to do everything we can to keep him in office. If you go to votesaveamerica.com, you can donate to our Senate fund, and if you volunteer, you may even find some young guys to have fun with while traveling. During an interview at Harvard earlier this month, Trump's son-in-law and Gumby's evil human twin, Jared Kushner, said this.
Gaza's waterfront property. It could be very valuable to if people would focus on kind of building up, livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there. But I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up.
What a sick fuck. It's a plan Kushner has taken to calling from the river to the Airbnb. Remember when Kushner said he could solve the Middle East because he had read 25 books about it? I think I can speak for almost everyone when I say that I would like to see Jared hit over the head by these books. One by one. It won't solve anything, but it's something. Where would those Palestinians go, you ask? No worries. Jared has a plan, and it's to bulldoze something in the Negev and dump Gaza's civilians there. Anyway, fun fact about Jared Kushner, the New York Times reported in 2017 that when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was visiting New York back in the 90s, he would stay at the Kushner's home and sleep in the teenage Jared's bedroom while Jared slept in the basement. So you'd think Kushner would have some sympathy for people who are sick of having their homes taken over by right-wing Israelis. But somehow no. Truly just a dumb fucking monster. Last week, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called for new elections in Israel, saying Netanyahu had lost his way. Netanyahu forcefully rejected the claim, saying, "I've always been evil." So on Wednesday, Netanyahu railed against Schumer in a remote closed-door meeting with Senate Republicans, accusing him of interfering with another country's politics by interfering with another country's politics. On Thursday, House Speaker Mike Johnson said he'd be absolutely thrilled to have Benjamin Netanyahu come speak directly to Congress.
I would love to have him come and address a joint session of Congress. We'll certainly extend that invitation.
Continued Johnson, we'll make sure to have something here he can eat. A nice box of matzah, some of those fish blobs, a brisket. Am I pronouncing that right? Brisket? Added Johnson, turning to an aide. He speaks English, right? The whole thing won't be in Jewish or whatever. Though it was hard to hear Johnson over the sound of his church's patented Spot a Jew app blowing up in his pants pocket. Meanwhile, as Republicans jockey for the approval of Israel's right-wing leader, 2.2 million people in Gaza are at risk of famine. 70% of northern Gaza is already starving. And while the UN says they have enough aid near the Gaza border, they cannot get it to those in need because of the inspection process by Israel, the destruction of roads inside Gaza, and the ongoing fighting. The only way to get food and aid to those in need is through a ceasefire. On Wednesday, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that the United States had submitted a draft resolution to the UN calling for an immediate ceasefire that would be tied to the release of hostages held by Hamas. That's good news, but I wish the draft didn't end with no worries if not LOL. When asked how the United States could effectively push Israel towards a ceasefire while both supporting them financially and vetoing every UN resolution that asks for a ceasefire, Blinken replied that the new resolution asks for an immediate ceasefire tied to the release of hostages, and we very much hope that countries will support that. Blinken also affirmed that the U.S. will continue to support Israel and its right to defend itself to make sure that October 7th never happens again. But at the same time, it's imperative that the civilians who are in harm's way and who are suffering so terribly, that we focus on them, that we make them a priority, protecting the civilians, getting them humanitarian assistance. If only we had some way of leveraging the vast amount of money and supplies we send to Israel's military, some way to tie our support of this country to what we believe is not only morally necessary, but also in Israel's best interest. Why are we always beseeching? George H.W. Bush put conditions on aid for Israel, and he wasn't some lib. He used to run the CIA. You make a joke about this. The Supreme Court on Tuesday gave Texas a temporary green light to enforce its new immigration law that allows local police to arrest people suspected of crossing the border illegally. But don't worry, law enforcement needs to have a compelling reason to suspect them. Something like speaks Spanish or looks like they might speak Spanish. As of today, the law is back on hold after the Supreme Court returned the case to the Fifth Circuit, which had previously blocked a lower court ruling blocking the law, but now blocked the law itself while scheduling arguments. If you're confused, don't worry. A local cop in Amarillo, Texas will surely handle this legal morass deftly. The law was in effect for just hours, giving local law enforcement blue balls, which interestingly enough, is what we'll all have to show at the border to cross into Mike Johnson's America. Speaking of flooded borders, more than 150 of Washington, D.C.'s famed cherry blossom trees will be chopped down later this spring in order to build higher seawalls around the Tidal Basin. Said a young George Washington, "I cannot tell a lie. We need to build higher seawalls around the Tidal Basin." The land around the basin has sunk 5 feet over the last century, and climate change has caused the water level to rise by more than a foot. As a result, sections of the walkway now flood every day at high tide. But it's been beautiful to see how the tourists band together and help each other keep their iPads above water until the daily helicopter arrives. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey on Wednesday signed a bill into law that bans diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at public schools and universities. The law also requires public universities to designate restrooms on the basis of biological sex, defined by Alabama law as the physical condition of being male or female as stated on the individual's original birth certificate. And with that, we've solved our state's last 2 problems, said the governor of the state, ranked 40th in crime, 44th in education, 44th in healthcare, and 47th for its environment. That's just a point. About Alabama. The Justice Department sued Apple on Thursday, joining 16 states in Washington, D.C. in an antitrust lawsuit that accuses the company of building and maintaining a smartphone monopoly, finally answering the age-old question, who Apple watches the Apple Watchers? Come on back. Shake it up. The government outlined a number of what it believes are anti-competitive practices, like blocking other companies from offering apps to compete with Apple Wallet and making other Apple products easier to connect to iPhones rather than rival smartphones. But here's what's interesting. If you read the lawsuit while wearing an Apple Vision Pro, it's like you're reading it on the moon. The suit also argues that Apple undermines the ability of iPhone owners to text with Android owners using green bubbles to signal the inferiority of other smartphones. But as anyone who's ever bullied an Android user knows, the Samsung freaks undermine themselves. Oh, tell me more about your 40 camera lenses. I'll be over here airdropping a screenshot of a meme to a selection of strangers. It's called networking. On Tuesday, Beyonce posted that her forthcoming album, Cowboy Carter, was born out of an experience that I had years ago where I did not feel welcomed, and it was very clear that I wasn't. I see Beyonce also attended Cool Devin's bar mitzvah that his parents made him invite the whole class to. I've always said that Beyonce and I were a lot alike. 2 hot, astonishingly talented outcasts. Shut up. Chill out. Fans believe Beyonce was referring to her performance of Daddy Lessons with the Chicks at the 2016 Country Music Awards, which drew backlash even before she hit the stage. That happened on November 2nd, 2016, though. So I understand if your memory of the 2016 Country Music Awards has been obliterated by what happened 6 days later. That's what happened to me. I was like, oh my God. Because remember that? There was a whole controversy, and then gone it went. And finally, wildlife conservationists in Southwest Florida found a record 11 Burmese pythons in a single day last month. Even better, they were all having sex with each other. The pythons were found in 3 separate mating balls, each of which contained 1 female snake and a pile of male snakes. Python, more like pie-fuck-a-thon. Thank you, Chris. That's where the awooga goes. There's a science to this. But don't let the name mating ball fool you. It's just a heap of snakes, not a sphere. They call it a mating ball because the snakes are having a ball, fucking and sucking each other.
It's love it or leave it.